Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a post-game review. And as you see, we have the Knicks going over the Philadelphia 76ers, 112-97. Just want to go over a little bit of stats and then go into a little bit of my thoughts and opinions for the game. Game leaders were Tobias Harris, 23 points. Kemba had 19 points, which I thought was great. Tobias Harris also had 9 rebounds. Julius Randle had a double-double. And the assists, Julius Randle and Tobias Harris. So I think it was a dual matchup for the most part. Tobias Harris versus Julius Randle, because Joel Embiid didn't give anything. Knicks shot 47% from the field to Philadelphia's 43% for the game. The Knicks got 43% from the field to Philadelphia's 29% from three. So we beat them inside and outside of the three-point line, even when it came to turnovers, and we out-rebounded the 76ers, which is interesting because they have Tobias Harris, they have Joel Embiid, and they have Andre Drummond. But Andre Drummond wasn't playing too much, and Joel Embiid had an off day, had an off game. So these things tend to happen. And as you can see down here, the standings right now, Knicks are first in the Atlantic, and Philadelphia is fourth. Of course, these things happen. It's still very early in the season. 77% attendance, 15,000 people were there. And now let's get into the box score. I want to make sure that the volume doesn't play as well. Tobias Harris chipped in 23 points on 10 of 18 shooting. We have to be careful with him next time. Joel Embiid made all his free throws, even though he had an off night. So imagine when he's on. And Tobias Harris, that is the only person that scored over 20 points per game. Otherwise, they did have 1, 2, 3, 4 players in double figures. Almost had 5. Korkmaz almost scored double digits. And he had this really great move. Alas, the Knicks were able to come up with the help of Kemba Walker, with the help of Julius Randle, and people kind of coming up and making amends for the loss against the Orlando Magic. Randle had 16 points, but 11 rebounds and 7 assists. So now he has some help, and he doesn't have to be too tired. But he did play 36 minutes. Mitchell Robinson played 29. He had 7 points. Kemba Walker, 19. Evan Fournier, 18. RJ Barrett, 10. RJ Barrett's still trying to find himself. D. Rose came up in the clutch and really helped out when we needed him, which I thought was fantastic. Tibbs didn't play Jericho Sims. He didn't play Grimes or McBride, which I'm kind of surprised. We'll talk a bit more about that once I get some free time to talk. Alec Burks did come in, did help, missed a few shots. I feel like Alec Burks could have had 14 points in 17 minutes, but instead he missed a few layups. Free throws, 93%, which I thought was very good. Let me see what Emmanuel quickly did. Obi was fantastic. Obi really helped, and IQ had 8 points in 15 minutes. Not too bad. Not too bad. And let's check the team stats. Blocks, only 5, so not really crazy from a defensive perspective. Even when it came to assists, they stole the ball more. Yes, I have that right. And our largest lead was 27 to their 6, which is insane if you think about it. We fouled a bit more, about the same points in the paint, so most of our shots were outside of the paint. They scored a pretty decent amount in the paint. Actually, they did, because 40 points, 72 points outside the paint. And I thought that was interesting with their three-point shot, three-point percentage, 43%. And we held them to 29, which means they were missing shots and, well, they got hot in the fourth a little bit. But they were missing shots, and we had good perimeter defense, which I thought was fantastic. And I just wanted to give you guys, I wrote down these kind of keys to the game. Tobias Harris on fire. Knicks let too many threes go in the fourth. Off night for Joel Embiid. That's for the 76ers. For the Knicks, Kemba Walker, breakout game. I called it, which I'll talk about as we go into the video. Evan Fournier redeemed himself. Knicks never let up on the lead. Hot start and good overall performance for Derrick Rose. And we finally break a 15-game losing streak against the Sixers. So overall, the game wasn't really much of a nail-biter, to be honest with you. the Knicks really, really got a chance to take their time and run some plays, run a bit more plays than what's normally expected. We took advantage of an off night for Joel Embiid, and I think the players on the Knicks really, really, really considered that. Listen, we lost to Orlando. We should not have lost to Orlando. So we need to come out and we need to be strong. And they did that to a certain point. It took Evan Fournier a little bit of time to get hot. It takes Randall a little bit of time to percolate as well. If I could quote Clyde, of course. RJ was there. Kemba started. Really, really, the beginning was kind of Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, Mitchell Robinson's defensive abilities, which I thought was fantastic. And really his height and his ability to grab the ball, which I'd like to see a bit more. He doesn't do the swat like Tyson Chandler used to do or like Taj does. And I think also here's one of the things that we're missing are, because Obi's good, but Nerlens Noel is our rim protector. Nerlens Noel is also a blocker as well from last season. And it's important to have someone like that on the team. And since he's out, and I'm not sure how long he's out for, but since he's out, we're compensating for that. And luckily, okay so far, 3-1, which I think is really good. But having him when the bench comes out and going up against another team's bench and knowing that you have at least a rim protector, and also during timeouts as well, if another team is doing a play outside of a timeout, it would be interesting to have, just for that one timeout possession as they're inbounding the ball, Nerlens Noel and Mitch on the defensive end, just to see what would happen. And also what would be an interesting lineup now that I think about it. I'm not sure how it would work, but Julius at the 3, Noel at the 4, Mitch at the 5. And then you could probably do RJ at the 2 and maybe Derrick Rose at the 1. I wonder how that would look in certain situations. So something to kind of keep in mind. Kemba, here's what's wonderful. If you caught the Magic yesterday, if you caught my Magic video that I posted, the second Magic video post-game, I wrote in my thing, in the description, I said, will Kemba Walker have a breakout? When will Kemba Walker have a breakout game? And what's wonderful is I can safely say that I called it because I was asking for it. And it's cool that I kind of willed it. So I thought that was fun. I thought that was really, really cool. Kemba came out. Kemba showed up. He really, really took the time, got his threes, moved, grooved, especially this game. This game, he looked a lot more fluid. And I think Tibbs brought him in and took him out at the right times. I think he used Derrick Rose really well at the right times. I think Tibbs not putting Jericho Sims in is interesting for me. And I think he wanted to prove a point to this Knicks team and to show this Knicks team that you can't lose to Orlando, so you guys have to play, and you have to grind out that win, and you have to do your best to make sure you get that win. I don't know how, I mean, I'm assuming, of course, right? But I don't know how I feel about that, because this was a good opportunity for Jericho Sims to see Tobias Harris, to feel Joel Embiid, and on an off night. This would have been a perfect opportunity for him to feel what Joel Embiid on an off night could look like, as opposed to just seeing what Joel Embiid on an off night would look like. The 76ers didn't help themselves. Danny Green, I know he's a three-point shooter, but I don't really trust him too much when it comes to shooting the three. So you could leave him open all the time. Evan Fournier came back around the third. He started to get a little bit hot, really made up for his lackluster performance during the Magic game on Sunday. Mitch, I think we found Mitch in the paint more, which was cool. Derrick Rose shines. Derrick Rose was fantastic. There were maybe 2 or 3 shots where I thought he forced a three or he forced a layup, but efficient, solid. The guy gets 15.4 points per game or something like that. The guy can easily get 17 without a problem, I think. And the way Tibbs is using this two-headed snake of a point guard lineup is cool. A couple of players I'm worried about a little bit. Not too much about Emmanuel Quickly, but RJ I'm slightly worried about. I know he's I don't want to say a slow starter, but it takes him a bit longer to get established. And what we're seeing now in these 4 games versus last season in the 4 games is cool, is different, and there is an upgrade. So I think his learning curve, he's meeting it and exceeding it now. So it's kind of like him and then a line of stocks. They're both going up, but he's just above the line. So he's progressing forward really well. I felt they shot better from 3 and they found more quality shots. Some of the Julius Randle threes, maybe two of them or 3 of them, I felt, okay, it was this typical, before it was the typical Julius Randle spinning into a double team and then shooting. Now it's the Julius Randle at the elbow or slightly off the key at the 3-point line, the dribble, the step back, and then the shot. That's his sort of standard now. I'd like to see him maybe a bit more in the paint, but he fights. He really fights in the paint. It would be nice for him to have a catch and shoot shot. So this way he doesn't have to fight too much when he's in the paint. I think that would be really nice. Instead, he's a back to the basket type of player. In most cases, from what I'm seeing when he's in the paint, getting his tough 2 points. Really, really strong 2 points. So it would be nice if he kind of develops, or a play is developed, or a few plays are developed for him where he can Tim Duncan-esque it off the backboard, catches it and shoots it so he can kind of get right back. We're doing our best to preserve the body and preserve the mind and getting into a decent rhythm. But with rhythm said, IQ is now creeping into finding himself, getting more comfortable. Still will probably need a bit more time. Ideally by the All-Star break, I'd like him to solidify at least a good rhythm for himself. With RJ, I'm not concerned too much, but I'm more perplexed because there's moments where I feel personally that RJ's best performance is when you don't see it and he's defending his man individually. But sometimes in this game, I noticed that he did stand around and we settled for 3-point shots. So those are sort of things to look at. Obi Toppin, he had the crowd going for him. I thought that was fantastic. He did shoot a 3 that I don't think that he needed to take. And he did have that sequence where he tried to drive and then the shot just didn't go and then he fell. And it's lovely to hear the fans. But remember, you're going to endear yourself more to Tibbs when you're playing fundamental basketball and defense, when you're playing a basketball that helps you and your teammates and getting back on defense. Because realistically, Obi is playing more minutes than Taj. But when Noel comes back, I don't know who's going to get those Taj minutes. Maybe Obi's going to get those Taj minutes, and then Noel's going to get the Obi minutes, right? Eventually. With Noel, you're going to have to bring him back in. So I would assume that Noel's going to get the Taj minutes. Obi's going to stay at his Obi minutes, and then slowly it'll kind of balance out, and then Noel will get up more. I think Jericho Sims should still have played this game, and Randall should have not played about 3 minutes or so. But we were worried because they cut a lead down to 14. And Joel Embiid, even though he had an off game, anything could have happened. And we let this team last season when they won in overtime, we let this team get by with Seth Curry threes and Tobias Harris drives. And also in the first and second quarter, the 76ers got fouls. They got their foul calls. which, it is what it is, but this game never felt out of reach. It was always in reach. I was worried in the third because Knicks, I get worried about them in the third, and I also get worried about them down the stretch, 5 minutes left in the fourth. In the third, I was a little worried, but we stayed. We were pretty good. We were consistent. Alec Burks missed a few shots that I think could have went in, and that did him a slight disservice. But overall, I'm not going to get too upset. Because I understand what his role is. So I'm hoping when he gets his opportunities that he shines. And it would have been nice at the end of this to see Grimes and McBride. But they probably weren't needed. It is what it is. Overall, I thought it was a great game. Fantastic. We got a good win. We snapped a 15-game losing streak against them, which I covered in my 76ers review in a previous video. So feel free to check that out. Otherwise, guys, thank you for your time and good win.